So one of the ways that we close the loop, and one of the things that we consider part of our regenerative agriculture and permaculture practices here at Heart Harvest Homestead, is our composting system. We keep chickens, and I don't advise it. They do not make you any money whatsoever unless you're not feeding them organic, of course. We found the least expensive organic chicken feed that we can, and we hardly break even on our eggs, and we've just done the math on that, and it's honestly pretty depressing. But the one thing that chickens do for us on the farm that make them worth their keep here, besides being cute and enjoyable and being a constant source of entertainment, is they help us process all of our scraps from our orchard, all of our scraps from our home kitchen, all of our scraps from our garden, and even things like grass trimmings and wood chips and leaf mulch. We are constantly bringing to our chickens, depending on the season, different forms of brown and green organic matter. Throughout the spring and summer, when grass is aplenty, we'll bring them bags of grass, and we cycle through mulching our grass and bagging that. That way we could have them help us build this rich compost. And in the fall, we will bring them leaves and leaf litter from throughout the farm. And in the fall and winter, and sometimes in the spring and summer too, depending on how wet it is, we're also bringing them wood chips, which we get from municipalities. In any given year, we're producing anywhere from 45 to 60 cubic yards of compost that our chickens are doing most of the hard work in making for us. And I say most of the hard work because we do everything manual here on the farm. We do not yet have a tractor. Fingers crossed, one day soon we will, but for the time being we don't. And it's a lot of hard work, and you're paying for it. We're not paying for our inputs, we're not paying for our compost, but we are paying for it in the time and in the effort and in that physical labor invested in that end product, which is that compost. So throughout the year, we're bringing them all of these inputs. They're doing what they do best, and they're kicking and they're scratching everything up, and they're aerating that soil. And what you see by the end of that time, after you've let that soil rest and moved them on and harvest all of that compost, is just this black gold, this super nutrient dense and rich compost that we then take and feed to our garden and feed to our orchard and feed to all of our fruit trees that we have on the property. This is a lot of hard work, but it's once again part of our regenerative and permaculture practices here. At the end of each one of these years, we will move those chickens from their location to an entirely different location. We will leave approximately 2 to 3 inches of this fresh compost when we go to move these birds, and we'll grow cover crops and native grasses in this environment to where we're not just depleting the soil where they were, but we're actually building up a more robust and more fertile ecology where the chickens came from. And then when they go to the next environment, we'll start that process all over again. Here at Heart and Harvest Homestead, we are deeply invested in our perennial crops, especially fruit trees. It's been rainy the past few days here, and it's really nasty outside, so we're shooting inside of our high tunnel because we have a controlled environment here and we don't want to run the cameras outside where it's nice and wet right now. But anyways, we are in the midst of a thousand plus young fruit trees right now in the foreground and behind us. And we have, like we mentioned earlier, about 200 that are actually in ground on property right now. We think we could fit about 50 to 75 more before we max out this property. So the goal is somewhere between 250 and 300 fruit trees. And why we're concentrating on these perennial crops is, while annual vegetable production is a huge passion of ours, and it's something we will always do on this farm, we recognize to actually address food security, unless you have a huge critical mass of people doing what we're doing with annual vegetable production in a responsible and holistic way, you're never really still going to be able to meet the supply and demand issue with larger communities for food production. But one way that you can do it is with fruit trees and with perennial crops, because a fruit tree, depending on the variety, will produce anywhere from 500 to 2,000 pounds of fruit every single year. And if we have 200 fruit trees on property right now, producing even at the low end or to the high end, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of fruit every single year. And that can actually help us address some of these food deserts, some of these places that don't have any organic food available. So we're hoping that we could help correct some of that in this community. We collect heirloom and heritage fruit trees that have been growing and thriving in this area for, some of them, hundreds of years. Some of them are more modern cultivars, but none of them need sprayed. Very few of them need any attention besides some water whatsoever throughout the year to actually get growing and thrive. They're all disease resistant, they're all pest resistant, and that is one of our big concentrations here on the farm at Heart Harvest Homestead. We don't want to be the only person with an orchard in our area in Shreveport-Bossier. That's not good for operational security, and that's also not good for the stability of the food system in the area. So one of the advantages of being able to do the interview in front of all these young trees is because we're going to be rehoming these over the coming years, and we're going to be encouraging other local farmers to do what we're doing, maybe not to the same degree, but to a certain degree. We're going to encourage people in our neighborhood, like, plant a fruit tree, let it grow some food for you, then plant a garden in your backyard and use some of these no-till principles. Watch how much food you can grow for yourself on a local level. I think if I've learned anything through my 3 years with a no-till organic market garden system, I think it is that this is very hard work, it's very challenging, and it takes a very special person to want to do something like this. Doing this at a human scale and at a human level poses challenge after challenge after challenge. And if you're not able to financially support yourself while committing 100% to it, then you're bringing revenue in from off farm and you're splitting yourself, and that makes it even more challenging for people. If this has taught me anything, it's taught me that the most resilient food system isn't going to be relying on conventional farmers to make the shift to organic. For young farmers and up-and-coming farmers to come into the game and start doing everything regenerative and organic and at a human scale. While the synthesis of organic and regenerative agriculture with the utility and efficiency of conventional agriculture would be the ideal relationship between growing food in a holistic and nutrient-dense fashion while also being able to feed people on a large scale, I don't necessarily think that's as practical or pragmatic as people taking their power into their own hands and just doing something in their backyard. It really is that simple. The easiest way for us to have a resilient food system isn't hoping that thousands and thousands of young people across the country are going to necessarily see these videos or be encouraged by these people to do something like this as a full-time career. I think that's awesome. If people want to do that, go for it. Go for it. You're going to do great because you're crazy if this is actually what you want to do, because it's really hard. But there's a select percentage of people that are going to see this and they're going to be perfect for it because they don't want to work indoors. They don't want to slave away into 9 to 5 and just watch their life slowly slip away for them while working for some big corporation. And they'd rather be challenged on a day-to-day basis, and they'd rather do something with their hands, and they'd rather watch a seed go from the smallest unit of life to the greatest unit that it possibly can, providing food for them in their community. But what I think is more realistic than thousands of these crazy visionary people coming together throughout the world and doing this type of thing, what's more realistic and pragmatic is just everyone doing something. Plant a fruit tree. Plant a fruit tree. You should have done it 10 years ago or 5 years ago, but do it now. Plant 10 of them if you have the space, and then get to gardening. Do something, even if it's small. That's the most responsible thing you could do. It's the best thing you could do for your legacy and for your family and for your community overall. But you need to be doing something. And if everyone just did a tiny little garden with organic practices in mind, maybe no-till, maybe a raised bed, whatever's best for you. If everybody did something, if everybody just did the bare minimum, which is not outsourcing your food growth to corporations that don't care about your personal health and well-being. If everybody just did something, the world would be a lot different place right now. Have hope, grow some food, enjoy yourself, do it with your friends and family, and be happy.